So just before we go back into our mean stack app, I just want to talk briefly about the final exam. So our exam for this class, is not for 2 weeks. So it's on the 13th, I believe. Let's just double check. Yep, so it's in this room at 9 a.m., not 8 a.m., in 2 weeks on the 13th. Okay. Format will be similar to the midterm, so it's going to be an all practical test that will be open book. It will largely focus on Angular because I didn't make it part of the assignment. I pretty much assessed you when I'll mark your assignment 2s shortly. They'll be done before next week. Okay. But we've really focused on using Node, Express, and Mongo. So definitely Angular is going to be a big part of the final exam. We'll also, I can't remember the exact weighting, so we can just have a quick look at the syllabus. We can check and see what the exam is worth, because I don't remember off the top of my head what the weighting is worth. So 30%. And like I said, I will get your assignments marked relatively quick. Actually, no, I think I've marked them already, haven't I? Yeah. You already have your grades for that. Okay, it's the. Okay, can I ask you a question? Yes, sure. Why is it called a bonus in the marking scheme? I shouldn't have called it a bonus. Okay. Because I got like 100 on everything except. I shouldn't have called it a bonus. It should have just called it independent. It was bonus, like. No, it wasn't. It was poor choice of words. So I'll change that terminology in the future. Fair criticism. Okay. So we can add and edit, which is good. We're making some progress. I'm actually going to add. I'm not sure why. Where's my table striping isn't here. Let's see. I should have Bootstrap. All right. Well, I won't worry about that too much for now. Okay, so I want to add into my table, we'll add an actions column. And we'll add edit and delete links in here. So this one will say edit. We'll have a red button for delete. So we'll get these buttons here. They're not going to do anything yet. I don't like that black text on there, so we'll. Text white. And this should probably be a TH, so it's in bold. I think I used a TD here on line 24. I'll change that to a TH. So we're going to need 3 delete methods. We're going to need a delete method in our Express API, delete method in our service, delete method in our Angular component. So I think I'll actually start, the last time we did it first, we did add in the component, then the service, then in the API. I'm actually going to do it in the reverse order, because every time we wrote one of those methods, it was calling the next sequence in the chain, and it was throwing an error because that method didn't yet exist. So we kind of went from the front end backwards. Maybe for these two, we'll go from the back end forwards. So let's create a delete method in our tasks controller. So we can use router.delete. Same URL, but we do need an ID parameter. If we're going to delete a task, we need to know the ID of that task. So we can use Mongoose to call task.remove. And we just pass in our ID value is underscore RD. So this has a where clause for our remove method. It will only remove the task document that has this ID. Comes in the URL. If we get an error, we'll go and check our HTTP status codes. We want to use some kind of 200 status for a success. We don't want to use 201, which is resource created. We could use the generic 200, which is okay. But we can go and look, we might find a more descriptive status code. We can have a look here and see. If there's any, so we've got created. I guess we could use 202 maybe, that the request was accepted. Or 204 for no content. Either of these would probably work. I'll use 202. So there's our API method. Now we'll need a delete task method in the service. It calls the API, and then a delete task method in the component. It calls the method in the service. So we'll go to our task service, and then delete. So here we'll take in an ID parameter. So we'll call delete on our API. We'll pass in a, whoops, I guess I want to hard code that in. Another header. So our URL will be our root / tasks / the ID number. And then our component can call this method, pass in the task ID. And then we'll need to modify our delete link. Right now, our delete link doesn't do anything, just renders a red button. You click delete, right now, nothing happens. No functionality here yet. So our service is pretty lightweight. If we go to the component, let's see. So what do we need here? We need an it should be number. So then we can call delete task on our service. And again, we'll refresh our list. Now we don't actually have an ID property, so we should probably define one. And I think I said it was a number, but it should be a string because Mongo IDs are strings. So we'll maybe define it. Actually, maybe I'll read it called underscore ID to be consistent. Is this underscore ID is a string? I'll rename any references I made. So this should be a string. And I'll change my service as well. Just I'll call my parameter underscore ID just for consistency. It would still work like this. I'll call my parameter name underscore ID. So now our delete buttons need to call our delete task method and pass in the ID. So on our button, we'll click handler here. We're going to call delete task. And we'll pass in task underscore ID. We probably also want a confirmation pop-up. We'll try it like this first. And if it works in a component before we call the service, we'll pop up a little JavaScript confirm box with an OK and cancel. So this is going to reload. So it deletes right away. There's no confirmation. So in my component, we're actually going to wrap this. So if return confirm, make sure you want to delete this. So we'll wrap the call to our service inside. No, it may just be, I can't use return there. You are correct. So that should give us our little confirm window. If it returns a true, then call the service to delete the task. If it returns false, the user click cancel, don't do anything. We'll try again. Cancel does nothing. I've already done this task, so I will delete and say OK. Table updates. So delete was probably the simplest. So for update, we're going to need a couple of methods, because what we want to do is when I click edit, I want to populate this task into the form first. That'll be step one. So the name, priority, and complete get rendered up here. Yeah, so we have to do a get first and populate the form, and then we'll need a put for doing an update when they click save. So put is the HTTP method that was typically used for doing updates. There's actually two. Some APIs will use put, others will use, there's also a method called patch. There's no method called update. I don't know why. So put and patch are used for updating resources. So we'll use put. So we're going to need, we already have, if we go back to our Express controller, we've already got the get one method. So we can use this to populate our form. But we have no put method for processing an update. So we'll write the put method. So we'll use router.put, and we've got to have an ID parameter here. So in this case, we're going to call task.update. We want to set out which document we're updating with the ID. We can just pass in the entire request body. Mongoose will automatically map any properties from the request body to the same field names. And we'll get back either an error or a task. Oops. And this code's basically the same. Actually, maybe I'll change this one. Delete sends nothing back. Maybe I'll change that to, what's 204? No content. So for delete, we'll do no content because the document's gone. And for an update, we'll send back 202 that the update was accepted. So there's our API part. Now our service and our component, we need two methods in each, because we need the get to populate the form, get one, and then we need the update when the user submits the form. The other trick we're going to have is we're actually going to need a second save button in our form. Because if we look at our form, our save button is wired to call add task. We'll want a separate button for saving an update. So we'll hide this one and we'll show an identical button. So it will look the same to the user, but we'll have one button that we'll call add and a different button that'll call save, because they're calling different methods. The user won't know the difference though. So now we need to go to our service. So we've got a get all, an add, and a delete. We don't have get one, and we need that. So when the user clicks edit, we can populate the current task into the form. So let's see, we'll call this slow. So this will take in an ID parameter. So this will get the selected task. So we can populate it into our form. And then a component will also write a select task method that will be called on the click of edit. Actually, now that I think about it, we may not even need that method in the service. Here's why. When we click the edit button, we already have all the properties we need. We have the name, priority, and complete inside our loop. So I think we can actually populate the form just from these values. I don't think we have to call the database to get the values. We already have the values on the page in this row. So we may not even need this. We'll comment it out. I don't think we even need it. So our select task, it will take an ID. Let's think about this for a minute. Oh no, we'd have to pass in. Okay, sorry, it is easier to do it this way. Never mind. So we'll say this dot task service dot select task. So in this case, we then set the properties. Let me just think. I want to make sure I'm doing this the right way. Yes, I have a lot of paper. So we want to populate okay, we're getting an object back. Bear with me for a second. Okay. What if we just pass in the whole object here? We pass in a task object, but we do it this way. Just name. Yeah, I think that would work. Yeah, we may not need our service. We'll try it like this. So instead of passing in an ID, we're going to pass in the whole object. And because Angular binds this dot name, this dot complete, and this dot priority to our form, that should fill our form fields automatically because we have these ng model attributes. Okay, thank you. So in this case, we're going to select a task, and we'll just pass in the whole object. So when we click it, it just maps these three values directly into these three fields. But yes, I better check that. Thanks, Serge. Right, thank you. This should be task.complete. So if we click the edit button, we pass in this whole document to the method. And by binding it to these properties, it should automatically populate our form, I think. So I don't think we need this method in the service. Let us try. Cool. So we already have all the data in the view. In the front end, there's no need to call it back from the database to fill the form. We're just copying each value into the appropriate control. I should also try out my checkbox. Let's see. Complete me and SPA. If I say it's complete, so it shows as true. Okay, yeah, my checkbox. I wanted to make sure my checkbox got checked. The problem here is if I hit save, what's going to happen? Right, because save calls add task. So we need another save button here that will do an update, and then we can toggle which one is visible. So we don't need select task in our service. We can just pass in the whole object to the component, and then the component writes the logic to populate the form. We also want the ID, however, because if we want to process an update, we need an ID in our form. So I'm going to add the ID property as well. And we want to render the ID property in a hidden field in our form. And then we can use that to determine which save button to show. If the ID is null, show the button that calls add task. If the ID has a value, hide the add button and show the update button. So I'll go back here and in my form, I'm going to add an input equals hidden. Name is underscore ID. ID is underscore ID. And of course, my ng model is underscore ID. So now we can use kind of another Angular directive. In our add button, I'll use *ng if and we can just check if there is no ID. So if our ID field is null, the add button will be visible. If the ID field is populated, the add button disappears. So it dynamically will toggle. So most of the time our button will be visible, but as soon as we click edit, edit populates our hidden field. So our save button will disappear. So notice when I reload my page, save is visible. But if I hit edit, save goes away. If I view the source, that's because we can't actually see the source, which is good because we're using Angular. So we probably also should add a reset button here that clears out the form, including the ID it would bring our save button back. So I'm going to add first the reset button. Make it green. And for click, we already have a method in our controller called clearForm. So that nulls out name, complete, and priority. We'll just need to also null out the ID property. We'll just modify our clearForm method to make sure when you click clear, the ID is typed out. So here's clearForm will underscore ID is also null. So now if I click edit and populate my form, and then I want to clear it out again, I can just click the reset button. That'll clear my form and bring my add button back. If I click edit, add goes away, I click reset, save comes back. So now we need an update button to appear instead. So visually it will look the same to the user. We're going to have two identical buttons and we'll toggle which one shows because they're going to call different methods. Yep. It's used more and more commonly. But the whole point, well, there's reasons to do. Well, that would be another thing we could do is we could put an add a task link on the top and clicking it shows the form. Sure, we could do that. Yep. Well, it depends. You can manipulate it how you like. Depends on your workflow. To edit them in the table, yes, you could. I generally find I don't like to do that because if any of the fields are long, then the inputs are really wide and users have to scroll horizontally. So I find from a UI perspective, functionally, can you do it? Yes. From a UI perspective, I've done it before and have sworn to avoid doing that from a UI perspective. But functionally, can you do it? Absolutely. Oh, yes, absolutely. Right? There's even templates in Visual Studio. You can build the .NET Core web application with an Angular front end or a React front end. It has templates. It has templates for doing that. Yeah. Okay, so we've already written the put method in our controller. We'll take a break soon because John clearly needs some coffee. So let's write the update task method in our service. So like our add, this is going to take an entire object. So we'll return this.http.put. So we'll send it to tasks/ And here we're going to need our task dot underscore ID. Because look at the URL for our controller, right? We need an ID parameter. We can. So we're passing in a whole object that has 4 properties: ID, name, complete, and property, right? So we're appending the ID on to the URL. But we're as the and sorry, I did miss this. We need to actually pass in the request body, pass the object to the controller. So at this URL, pass it the updated task document. So I think, actually, John, if you can hang with me for 10 minutes, we'll be finished. Okay? And then we will not require a 3rd-hour class. So rather than a break, I just set you free. Okay? I said this morning, this afternoon's class is also going to be brief. I hope by 2:15 we can do everything we want to do. Because Visual Studio is going to do most of the work for us. We are having a quick quiz on unit testing, and then we will do Web API with .NET Core, and that's it. Yes, it was index and details was required because we did those in class. You didn't have to do the other methods. Right. Okay. Yes, that was part of the requirement. We can talk, if you have more questions, we'll talk about it after. So there's our service. So now in our component, we can add an update task. Actually, whoops, I don't think we need any parameters for this. We'll just read. So we'll just read the values from the form. Whoops, sorry. So we'll just fill name. So this NG model is giving us the values. And then we can call out this task service update. And we'll subscribe to the response. So again, once we get a response back, we'll call get tasks and clear form. So update the list, wipe out the form. And now we need a second button and some logic on the button to show or hide our edit button. When our add button is visible, our edit button should be, our update button should be hidden, and vice versa. The user won't be able to tell the difference though. It's going to look like one button, but actually it's two. So in my task component, I'll copy this button. So on click, we're going to call update. But my ngIf will be the opposite. So this shows if we do have an ID value. So this button shows when there's no ID, and this button shows when there is an ID.
Wouldn't you better change the name for the button instead of like save to edit or something? Or like save or update?
We could.
Because I mean you can know when you're trying the code which one is the
Well, as far as the user's concerned, they don't add an update. So yes, if you wanted this one to say like add and that one to say update, sure, no problem. I'm going to keep it the same. So we'll just let it reload. So notice the button doesn't appear to change when I hit reset. So let's try this. So I'll add, and that works. And then if I go to edit, I want to change the priority. It just does the update, clears the form. So Peter, to come back to your question from earlier, we could add another variable into our component, like a Boolean variable called, let's say, show form. We could initialize it to false, and then on the click of a link, we could have JavaScript, or we could have a method in the component. We could have a show form method that turns show form to true, and we just use ngIf on that section tag. So we could attach that here, ngIf show form. So we could have a link that toggles it if you wanted to. Yeah, we could probably. It just depends how you want to do it. Well, that's part of the benefit is that it's not doing reloads. So it actually is, it's lighter, and it's also lighter from a hosting and bandwidth perspective because you're not doing all these reloads. You're saying if it's a simple app where we can load it once and use something like Angular or React and not have to reload it, that'll save cost. So we can do this. We can do, I'll set show form, sorry, by default, I'll set it to false. And maybe here, we'll say ngIf show form. So this should actually hide our form by default. So if we want to add a link above, like we had in our original task manager, it just says, we can just, so on add a task on this link, we could put click, we need a method called display form. So I could generate that method in the component. So this show form equals true. I think this will work. My form should be invisible until I click that link. Yeah, so that works. Now the other trick though, if I refresh and click edit, we also need to set show form to true. Because when I click edit, the form doesn't show up. So in my select task, we also need to say this dot show form equals true. And then if you want, after updating a task, after clear form, you could set show form to false after you do an update. So the form will disappear again. So Peter, this is probably the result you were kind of thinking of. If I go to add, right, it's here. Yeah, so I'll just add something. I guess I could close the form after if I wanted to. And then, here, so let me do that. We'll refresh. Yeah. So when we edit, form is, we're toggling that Boolean variable to true, and ngIf shows or hides the component. So after we do an add, also, we should set this dot show form equal to false. So every time I add, this should be my last run through it. So I'll delete, add a new task. So I will push to git, high priority, and my form disappears. I want to bring it back, I just click add again. So it's not a complex application, it's a simple application, but we can do everything in one load. We can do it all in one place. So the user doesn't have to navigate around. So this is pretty useful for simple apps. So it's the kinds of things I asked you to do in your assignment, for example, you know, something like a quick grocery list or a workout tracker, you might pull up on a mobile device. It's great, we can just load it and data changes in real time. Okay, so you may have lots of use for simple apps like this, where people just need something small, lightweight, and fast. Okay, I will push this up. All right, so, Okay. All right, I'm going to stop the video stream, so I'll see you guys this afternoon. As I said, we'll try to keep it brief this afternoon and get out of here a bit early. Okay? I can stick around for a bit. Anybody